Okay, welcome. Well, a great audience. A lot of you hanging on from the last talk, but some, I've no doubt, for this talk as well. And it's lovely to see this panel here. I said earlier, phasing out fossil fuel boilers, it's a hot topic, pardon the pun. But just how achievable is that? We're going to explore in this session the future of home heating and preparing UK homes for low carbon future. Is it a realistic thing? And are the alternative solutions affordable? Heat pumps are leading the conversation, but what other technologies could play a role? And what incentives? Are we getting a bit of someone else talking, wanting to butt in? Well, they can if they want, maybe they'll have a view. What incentives are needed to support home owners and across all property types? I'm joined by a great panel. I've worked with most of these people before. And we're going to discuss this topic. It's not a debate, let me just put it out there. It's a discussion. We've had some amazing debates this week as well already. But would you introduce yourselves? I'm going to start with you here.
Good morning, I'm Victoria Mathews and I am Head of External Affairs at Vaillant.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Craig Dolan. I'm the current chair of the Heat Pump Association and I'm a senior product manager for Dimplex for heat pumps and hot water.
I'm Francesca Kirtley-Paine and I'm the Public Affairs Manager at Liquid Gas UK.
And I'm Adam Rowlandson, Managing Director of Rowlandson Heating and Plumbing.
Brilliant. How did you think of a name like that for the company? No, I'm joking. Look, if you've got any questions or comments as we go along, then please stick your hand up and we'll come to you with a microphone. Victoria, let me start with you because you're sitting the closest to me. Thinking about technology readiness and practicality, how prepared is the market really to meet the future decarbonisation targets?
I think, Vaillant are historically have been focused on gas boilers, and we're revolutionising our business to make sure that we've got the future technologies like heat pumps. If you look at our stand today, if you go wider and look at the whole show, the amount of heat pumps that you see here is
Other stands are available, aren't they?
They are. Walk around. There's loads of heat pumps. So I think in terms of the industry, I think we're showing that we're here and that we're ready. These are tried and tested technologies. Vaillant, I will mention Vaillant a few times because I know them better than any other. We've been doing heat pumps since the early 2000s, so we know what we're doing with this technology. But it goes further than that. The government have got targets that they want to achieve for decarbonisation for home heating. And to do that, we need not only the manufacturers like ourselves, but we also need the wider industry. We need installers and we need consumers to be on that journey as well. And we're still at a point where we have got a skills shortage for heat pumps, low carbon heating. We've got something like 130,000 gas safe registered installers, only something like 11,000 MCS registered heat pump installers. So we really need to do something to turn the dial there to make that to increase that uptake. One of the things that we're doing on our stand, actually, which is worth going to see,
is that the Vaillant stand?
It is the Vaillant stand,
okay,
yeah. Here's the name. My Vaillant Design. My Vaillant Install is this one. And what we're doing here is talking to installers, gas installers, about what they're doing at the moment, and trying to transition them onto heat pumps because that's the future. So. Have a chat with the guys on the stand. You get a fully funded heat pump to put into your property to make that transition. So that's the installer angle covered, but also for consumers. We need consumers to be aware and to be confident and to feel guided on this journey because changing your heat source is a big thing.
And it's a thing we come down to, every year in one way or another. It's about education. And that's a key component of this, isn't it?
Completely. I mean, we do see in some countries good education platforms, like in Scotland. They've got Home Energy Scotland, which is almost like a one-stop shop for support. We haven't got it in England and Wales yet, so we need those support mechanisms for consumers to make sure they're making the right decision and also making them confident this technology is here to stay.
What sort of role do you think hybrid systems and gas boilers play in the short and medium term?
There's certainly a role short and medium term. So if a gas boiler breaks today and somebody has a replacement gas boiler, because let's face it, 70% of gas boilers are distress purchases. It's when you sat there and you've got no heat and hot water. We can really expect that boiler to be running until the 2040s, average 15-year lifespan. So there is certainly a role for gas boilers in the short term. In terms of hybrids, yes, they've got a place to, they've got a role to play. I think with hybrids, for those kind of complex decarbonised properties, the 20% of properties which are more costly or difficult or more challenging to change to a heat pump, there is potentially a role there as well. There are some benefits around reduced energy use, reducing the energy, but actually long term, if you're looking at a hybrid, it may be easier for the consumer to just go full scale heat pump because it saves the headache for later on.
Craig, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, just to build on that, like a hybrid is a system solution, and it is a heating system, and we're kind of probably a little bit too focused on the heat generator, whether it's a heat pump or a fossil fuel boiler. I had a hybrid in my house for 7-8 years. It worked brilliantly. It was tariff controlled. I put in how much I paid for my electric, how much I paid for my gas, and the control sorted out which one was going to run at the most cost-effective price. But you have to be, there are some challenges with hybrid, like why would somebody pay for 2 heat sources when one does the job?
Yeah.
But there is a benefit from a grid point of view, because if you have got a hybrid and you can run off electricity and gas, with the half-hourly tariffs that are coming in, you could have a smart system where you're running the heat pump when electricity is cost-effective and using your boiler as a turbo or a boost. But the challenge is always going to be why pay for 2 heat generators when one does the job. And if you are doing the heating system properly, arguably, and following building regs, then you should be installing the system at a 55-degree flow rate or a maximum 55-degree flow rate. You should be balancing the system. You should be setting up the control. And then the heat pump is probably going to run 90-95% of the time.
Right.
And the boiler will be the turbo or the hot water generator. It's finding space for the hot water, which is going to be challenging. But again, looking at a wider system solution as time of use tariffs become more popular, a cylinder is a thermal battery. So if you can use it as a thermal battery, you might be in the future paid to do your hot water generation at a certain time. And then I think more people will suddenly find space for a cylinder.
Right, okay.
Because they're getting a benefit from it. So it's kind of...
Okay.
We're only heating water, guys. It's not... We're just removing...
Not rockets, sir.
We're just removing a flame. So it's kind of... It's a system solution.
When you say it like that, it's quite simplistic, really, isn't it? Look, Adam's
I like to keep things simple.
He's chomping at the bit down there. Why don't you join in?
Absolutely, yeah. And I agree with what both of you said there. And I think the key takeaway from what they've both said is we've got to be agnostic with this. I've been installing heat pumps for over 20 years now, but I've always had my gas safe registration. I've always been installing oil boilers and LPG boilers. And when I turn up at a customer's house, I have that discussion with them. We talk about the different choices we've got, whether it be heat pump only, hybrid, LPG, oil, and different solutions fit different properties and different customers' needs. And that is the key that we all need to do, is keep everything on the table, as well as new technologies to move forward.
Because you're actually in a role as an educator every time you go into somebody's property, because they don't know. It's like a question, well, what would you do if it was your house, sort of thing. Francesca, let me come to you. How do you see renewable liquid gases stacking up against heat pumps when it comes to cost and infrastructure and cutting emissions? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I want to caveat this answer in that renewable liquid gases are essentially for that kind of 20%. So we've done some modelling, so it's about 36% of properties that are going to be what we call complex to decarbonise. So these are properties that are going to have kind of maybe a poor grid connection. They're going to have fabric issues that makes them costly to retrofit. And that's really where we see renewable liquid gases working. So they are a drop-in solution. So if you're already on an LPG boiler, the only thing that changes is your fuel. There's no change to any of the infrastructure, how it's delivered, any of that. So in terms of customer disruption, it's incredibly minimal, which is obviously a real bonus. We've obviously talked about, consumers can find this whole kind of travelling and this journey to net zero quite a scary thing. So to have that confidence that they're already using a system that they can trust, obviously is a huge benefit. And then looking at those sort of older rural properties that, maybe they can't be insulated properly, or they're going to be, too difficult to retrofit. We've done some modelling that kind of suggests that it would be around £32,000 for the retrofit cost and the upfront cost of a heat pump. compared to £2,000 for a renewable-ready LPG boiler. So a significant cost saving for the consumer. So we really do see that, for the long term, short term and medium term, this could be a solution for rural off-grid properties that, can't use any other technology. But I absolutely agree with what Adam said. We need to keep all technologies on the table. It should be a mixed technology approach. We're not in competition with each other. We're all trying to reach the same goal to decarbonise. Yeah. So let's put everything out on the table and give the option to the consumer around what works best for them.
Yeah,
just to jump in, that £32,000 cost is for a ground source heat pump. So that's quite a lot of groundwork. That's the equivalent of buying a boiler and then paying for the gas main to be connected. So there's a lot of £15,000 worth of groundwork in that. So, just to caveat that, air source heat pumps, which are the most popular, are substantially cheaper than ground source. Ground source, arguably, more efficient over the total lifespan, but really you're looking at heat networks or low temperature heat networks on ground source and flats rather than individual properties or a street-wide system.
And I totally agree with what Craig's saying there. That cost analysis there, the swing on installations and the cost of that installation is huge. I can turn up to a house and I can look at it, do a heat loss survey, look at the emitters, look at the pipe work, look at the location of the heat pump, and everything be bang on for a straight retrofit. So I can install the heat pump without changing anything in the house. That'll be the lower end, down at the £5,000 to £7,000 mark. And then, as Craig says, the other end, when we're doing a full ground source in an old 400-year-old house that's 300 square metres, we could be £30,000, £40,000. So we've got to think about it at both ends of it.
And of course,
picking the right solution for their house.
When people are buying a house, they don't even think of this sort of thing either, do they, necessarily, like what the add-on cost is going to be to do that. Craig, it's a significant focus of the current government, this whole heat pumps issue. But how feasible is it to install heat pumps in a majority of the homes, especially with their older or rural properties?
I'm in a 1930s semi-detached house in a semi-rural location, and I fitted a 7 kilowatt heat pump. I didn't upgrade any of the radiators. I changed one radiator because...
Did you have to call yourself back at any time to redo it?
No, I was all right. I knew how the controls work, but I only changed one radiator, and it was because the previous installer forgot their spirit level the last time the radiator was installed, so I just replaced that one so it was level. It's 1930s, 4-bed, semi-detached. It's a standard house. Like, heat loss calculations are important. We haven't done them for years. Like, apprentices do them, and then they probably never do them again because a 30 kilowatt combi will cover it. We're having to do heat loss. We're having to remind people how to do heat loss calculations. We're having to remind people on radiator sizing. It's just skills that we had that we haven't used, so people just need to be reminded of them. So they can be fitted into the majority of properties. As Adam was probably going to say, it's what solution is best for that property.
Yeah.
Like if you've got two semi-detached houses, one's been insulated and one hasn't. One might be suitable for an air-to-water heat pump system, and the other one might be better for a hybrid. And it depends on the homeowner. Like if they want their house warmer for longer, we're heating people's homes, and you have to remember the people, not just the house.
Yeah.
So the heat loss calculation is based on the house, what the house requires, but then you have to remind yourself that it's people's homes. So
and you're regularly going to people's homes. Is this kind of what you're observing?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to pick up on what we're talking about there, when it comes to the actual retrofit and are we ready for it and can we do it? We can heat any house in the UK with a heat pump, no problem. 800-year-old castle, brand new build where we're from in Preston all day long. The thing that changes is the capital expenditure. The technology does it, but it's more expensive to heat and install on an old property. That's the only challenge, the capital expenditure.
And is that the most common barrier, do you think?
Absolutely. So we'll sit in front of customers. So we've got customers there that are maybe looking at decarbonising, or they're ready for a new heating system. And we'll sit there and we'll discuss the options. They might have slightly green leaning, wanting to reduce CO2. They want that comfort factor and a reliable system. But at the end of the day, when it comes to that bottom line, The difference is the challenge. If we're going to retrofit or replace a gas boiler, it's at point X, and then it's that difference stepping up to that heat pump.
Has anybody got a question or a comment they'd like to make as we're... yeah, let me get a microphone. Can I borrow your microphone? I'll just...
Yeah, I'm an engineer, not in the heating industry, in the design industry. I have to say your comment about the difference on the bottom line to me is absolutely fundamental. I have to say that there was a presentation I was in yesterday, which was from one of the people who work with Ideal, and they had a comparison of the bottom line between putting a heat pump system into a commercial building versus an electric boiler system, and it was 10 to 1. The heat pump system was going to cost 10 times what the electric system. And the notion that everything has to be pushed by heat pump because it's great technology, I mean, it is a great technology. Everyone's got fridges, we've had them for years, but there are a lot of people, in my opinion, trying to push a square peg in a round hole, and I think the industry is in for a bite on the bum if it's not careful. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That's awesome. So, as you say, the capital expenditure to install a heat pump is way higher than an electric boiler. However, there's three things we need to look at. Customer comfort, got to be right. Capital expenditure needs to be there or thereabouts, but run costs have got to be there too. If you install an electric boiler, it will be at least 3 to 4 times more expensive than a heat pump over the lifespan of that system. And in a commercial environment, I'd like to think that system will last for at least 20 years. Payback is non-comparable between electric and heat pump.
Francesca, you were nodding along there with what Christopher was saying. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think, I completely agree with your views, and at Liquid Gas UK, we are very much around a mixed technology approach. And I think we have seen a little bit of a push towards electrification from government. And rightly so, in a number of properties, we absolutely don't disagree that there should be heat pumps in the majority of properties. But it goes back to ensuring that what's going to be installed is going to benefit the consumer, is going to be cost effective, and is actually something that they want. We need to bring consumers on this journey with us and offer them a choice. By telling them what they're going to do, a lot of people are probably going to be put off by that. And we actually feel that we need to set out a range of solutions and allow consumers to pick what's best for them. They know their property better than we do a lot of the time. And whilst they can obviously get expert help from people like Adam here, ultimately it should be their decision, but they should have a choice on what that decision should be, and they shouldn't, as you say, try and fit a square peg into a round hole.
Okay, anybody else like to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, let's move on. We've heard some of the key challenges. Craig, what policy changes does the HPA see as urgent to make low-carbon heating more affordable? Schemes like the boiler upgrade scheme, are they making a difference or not?
Yes, the boiler upgrade scheme is making a difference. As Adam mentioned, it's taking some of the sting out of that capital cost. We've seen that the vouchers being issued is right on the budget line, so that's great news. All of that money is being utilised, and that means more heat pumps being deployed. The major policy thing, and I'm sure Minister Famboule was over in the other hall yesterday. She opened with we need to deal with the spark gap. So that's the cost difference between gas and electricity. It's around 4.5, 4.8. I'll be wrong, but yeah, it's around that. It needs to be below 3, really, because it is a difficult nettle for them. I was fortunate enough to get an audience with Miata. As soon as she started, it was the number one point that I brought up then. All of the government officials that we're talking to from a HPA perspective open their talk about how they're looking at how they get the spark gap down. We cannot put the levies that are on electricity onto gas. That's a non-starter. That will put more cost on gas. We're still suffering from the gas price shock from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's why our energy prices are so high. To decouple the gas and electricity prices, because it's currently gas generation that's setting the electricity price, that's primary legislation. Without getting really boring and technical, that's 2 years. So it's painful. It debates, consultations, and all of it. They are looking at ways that they can work around it to get the cost of electricity down. We're working proactively with them on that. Vic's helping with that. We've also got other members of the association that are getting involved. We're doing lots of analysis. We're investing in that. So the electricity cost is the main one. The next one is like the heat training grant that's been made available. It was really good to see the analysis that the Heat Pump Association had done to help DESNZ win over the Chancellor and get that investment. It is an educational piece. As Adam's mentioned, it's been able to offer a suite of system solutions to the consumer and understanding the benefits of each system and how it would work best for that family and that household. So, training, we need more skilled staff coming through, apprenticeships, like the work that Vaillant are doing, and other manufacturers getting more apprenticeships through, making sure that we can build those long-term green jobs, which are heat pump installers and electricians, and getting that momentum. Stability from the government is what's required, and we're finally getting that after.
Hang on, they're not normally two words in the same sentence, though, are they?
No, but if we look back to the previous governments, where we had Mr. Johnson and Ms. Truss and Mr. Sunak and Theresa May, they all had different ideas of how it was going to do stuff, and that doesn't help anybody do a lot. Like, if you want to invest in a factory, that's a 10 to 20 year investment cycle.
Investment.
Yeah, it's massive. And if you want to invest in an apprenticeship program, that's a 5-year program
But
minimum.
if the sands you're standing on are moving all the
And
time,
if it's you're not going to do it, you're going to wait and see. So it's kind of building that, and government have got that message now.
Victoria, you go on.
Yeah, just to.
It's
It's on. So on Craig's point, in terms of that momentum that Craig talked about is really, really important. And I think one of the things that the government should be thinking about at the moment is the future home standards and deploying that quickly. So that's the mandate of heat pumps going into new build properties. I kind of see it a bit like the EV market. Nobody really wanted EVs. They weren't really sure about them until a friend or a neighbour had one. They heard great things and they saw, what a difference it was making to those people. So I think once we've got heat pumps being more accessible and people knowing people that are using them, I think that will unlock some of the potential there in terms of deployment.
Maybe Donald Trump will buy a heat pump and then he'll advertise it for the world.
Just saying what Vic said, I had a random neighbour knock on my door last week from across the road and 5 houses up because he heard that I had a heat pump and he wanted to see it. Like, he didn't hear.
I hope you didn't hear the sound.
No, he didn't hear the heat
Good.
pump. But
You're going to get home, you've been burgled.
Word
you
of
realise
mouth.
that? I just want to touch on, we talked about education. I just wonder about workforce issues, Adam and Craig, in terms of installer capacity and training. Is that affecting the rollout?
It is, yeah. Well, it's an industry-wide problem in our industry: gas, oil, LPG, heat pumps. When I first started training, 2001, we left school, didn't we? Yeah, so 2001, did a 4-year apprenticeship. Loads of my peers left school, went through the apprenticeship programs. I employed apprentices in my business over the last 15 years. My brother has quite a large heating company. He employs multiple apprentices. However, many companies don't employ apprentices because it's so expensive. We did a cost analysis. An apprentice costs us between 20 and 22 pounds an hour, okay? And if I turned up to any of your homes and tried to charge that for a 16-year-old person, you would not be impressed. So we're stomaching that cost as a business. Now, being a profitable business is hard work at the moment. So sadly, we're making that decision not to take these guys on. We get more phone calls at the moment from school leavers than what we do customers.
So what's going to happen to the future of the industry then?
It's going to be challenging, simple as that. And we've got the short-term approach, which will be the policy change, the funding, the incentives. But that long-term approach really needs to get going now. It needed to get going 20 years ago. We're miles behind.
So what needs to be done to encourage?
So businesses need support. Rather than it being a cost that's attached to our business, the government needs to fund the apprenticeship programs by tax relief for us, or maybe other incentives like the wages of the apprentices being paid. I'm not stepping aside and saying that there's not a certain amount of responsibility that us businesses have to take on and costs that we have to take on, but we need supporting in it, otherwise we can't achieve it. The other thing is the colleges and the apprenticeship programs themselves need improving. The wages for the college tutors need to improve. When I was younger, when I first started an apprenticeship, what normally happened was, as the guys were getting into the 50s and 60s, they'd come off the tools and work their way into the colleges. It's not worth it for them to do it. The wages are so low. So the training's poorer than what it's ever been. There's less incentive for us as engineers to take on apprentices, and we're just going slowly downhill.
Wow, it's a catch-22 situation, really, isn't it? I just wonder, and Francesca, just changing tack slightly, consumer choice is key to decarbonising home heating. So for rural off-gas homes, what's the timeline for rolling out, do you think, renewable liquid gas boilers at scale? And that's the key thing. And how does that compare with the electric options?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Consumer choice is key to all of this. And so it comes back to that positive policy clarity from government. So at the moment, we really haven't had that. So industry is incredibly ambitious. There's a real drive towards renewables. We've invested 230 million into renewable liquid gases, and that's without that policy clarity. But in order to bring it to scale, we need to see, the green light from government.
But isn't that taking a bit of a gamble? Well, a big gamble.
It is, but industry recognises, we're moving to 2050, we're moving to net zero, and they want to be part of that journey. They recognise that, they can be a solution for those rural off-grid homes, and they want to be part of that solution. They want to be part of that journey. And so, they're investing that money, but ultimately, until we get the policy green light from government, and, we've had conversations with the Minister, Miata Fambula, where she said, we see a mixed technology approach. We need to see those words being put into action now. And that's kind of the biggest blocker for us to be able to bring it to scale.
The thing that always strikes me with this, talking to ministers and so on, when there's a reshuffle, suddenly they're onto, sport, and then you get someone else coming in. That's a difficult thing for you as advocates, if you like, to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it within the civil service as well. There's a huge turnover within the civil service. So, we'll spend 6 to 12 months educating someone around, the issues with rural off-grid and why it's so difficult and why we need a myriad of technologies. And then that person will move to a different role, sometimes even within a different department. We see it, obviously we've just had an election last year, so we had a Conservative government before, we've now got a Labour government, so we've had to completely change tactic in terms of our engagement. So it's very fluid and it is very difficult, and sometimes it does feel like 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Go on.
You're right. The minister is the figurehead. It's making sure that you've got strong relationships with the guys in DESNES and Department of Education.
Well, they're the ones who do the work, really, aren't they?
They're the guys that do the work, and it's making sure that you have a proactive relationship with those guys. But then when you get the chance to go into the minister, you are clear and concise in what you're asking for, and you've already seeded the ground with the civil servants on what you're looking for. The apprenticeship thing is tough because we're a relatively short-term election cycle, and like when you bring those things in, it don't necessarily impact in that election cycle, which is a negative thing. But we are trying to build that momentum up, and it's kind of with the installer group that we've got within the HPA, we're hoping now that we can really get some strong share of voice on the importance of apprenticeship programs and support for that, and the education to roll out different solutions.
As we're talking about government, I'm interested to get your views on whether the government should mandate specific technologies. Do you think they should or shouldn't they, or let people just make their own choice?
I think it would
I'll be neutral.
I think it would be incredibly brave for any government to ban any technology that is in 80% of homes.
Or stupid.
Well, Brexit wasn't that good, was it? And we kind of got most of our customers from Europe. Sorry, everybody, Brexit. But we need to be sensible on this. Like Francesca talked about, we need to bring consumers with us. We are not going to bring consumers with us if we ban something.
There's an argument that says once you have them by the balls, their hearts and minds follow, but I'm not sure that's right.
It's not going to work though, is it? Because there'll be a resistance group that forms. It's kind of, and we don't want it to become a cultural war. Like net zero is becoming a bit toxic. Like net zero is an outcome; it's not a target.
Yep.
Clean, sustainable energy and being
Good
able
point,
to heat our
actually.
homes
Yeah.
is the target. Net zero is the outcome. Like getting to a point. Nobody's going to ban any technology. We need to get to a point where heat pumps become the go-to option, or electrification of heat becomes the go-to option, or biofuels become the go-to option, because they are the most efficient and cost-effective for the consumer.
Victoria, talking about targets or aspirations or whatever, from a manufacturer point of view, what does a realistic and fair boiler phase-out timeline look like for your sector, do you think?
I think for us as a a boiler manufacturer as well as a heat pump manufacturer, I think it's having visibility, but making sure that we've got the consumer at the heart of those decisions. So could have by having that end date, whether we have it or whether we don't, at least then we can get prepared for manufacturers be ready and industry be ready as well, and also consumers be ready that the gas boiler they have in the home today might not be there in 10 years' time as a replacement. So I think it's about addressing the disparities of gas and electricity, making sure that we've got some robust argumentations for consumers as to why the heat pump is the go-to technology, making it easier for installers to switch from gas onto heat pumps. I was talking to somebody yesterday, one of the installers, and he was suggesting around tax breaks for businesses that are going on to green carbon technologies. I think those are good things that we should consider doing. So I don't know if we need that kind of specific complete ban, but we need that 10-year roadmap to say this is what's going to happen so that we can be ready and prepared.
Stability and clarity. Like I'm going to mention the hydrogen word, but we still haven't had clarity on that yet. Like I think everybody thinks they know the answer, but we still haven't had a clear answer. And like all we need is clarity and a bit of long-term planning and a timeline and milestones, and then the industry can react. Like we're ready to react. Like all of the members that I talk to are ready to react.
Right. Okay.
And they're all poised, and like I'm sure Adam is as well. Like he's already thinking about what he's going to be doing in 5 and 10 years' time.
Poised like coiled springs.
Like coiled springs, and the liquid gas guys investing in the biofuels. We're all ready. It's kind of like fire the starter gun.
Okay. Well, who wants to fire the starter gun? Anybody? We've still got time if you want for a last question or comment, if anybody'd like to do that. Okay, so look, the question we asked at the beginning, is a future fossil fuel boiler ban realistic, and are the alternative solutions affordable? Yes or no?
At the moment, there's a few bits of policy that need to come together to make it economically viable for installers to transition their businesses and consumer demand to grow, for me.
Okay, Craig?
Very, very aware that I'm the chair of the Heat Pump Association, and I am going to say...
At the moment,
yeah. No to a boiler ban. That would be dense. Are things as affordable as they should be? Affordability is a ropey word, because if you've only got 500 quid and something costs 550, it's not affordable.
Yep.
Opening finance packages and doing things like that. Again, as I've mentioned, the industry is ready. We want to go. We just need that thing. So, is it affordable? It will be.
Okay, Francesca.
I think to nobody's surprise, obviously, no to a boiler ban. But I think actually the rhetoric around that needs to change, because it's not the boiler that is the polluting part. It is the fuel. And if we are introducing renewable liquid gases, renewable liquid fuels, we are on the journey to net zero as well. So our LGs are actually around 80 to 90% carbon emissions reduction. So it's not the boiler, and I think that's a real kind of rhetoric and narrative issue that we need to challenge and needs to change.
It's a misconception almost.
Exactly.
It's an oversimplification.
Okay, right. Adam.
I'm going to use the standard heat pump installer line and say it depends. So I'd say it's sector to sector or property type to property type. So yeah, new build, yeah, you can ban gas boilers there. Businesses, yeah. Social housing, yeah. It's the guys in the middle, us guys that are working, that are the hardest ones to crack, and we cannot ban the gas boiler for us guys yet.
Brilliant, thank you. One last chance if anybody would like to ask a question, or you'll be hanging around here, I'm sure, if anybody has got a question they'd like to ask. Thank you very much. Would you please give them a round of applause for a great discussion, not a debate?